And up next, we have Skeyellama. He is talking on code is law and applying security techniques to profit in Web 3.0. So welcome, Skeyellama.
Thank you. Cal 3. I got 3 different mics here. You guys can all hear me? Excellent. Good. I'm going to need them. Can you hear me now still? Without that? All right. Excellent. Very good. All right. So again, I'm Skeyellama. Can you still hear me? Good. All right. I'm Skeyellama. I've got a little bit of passion for Web3 because I like to find ways to make things and do things that their creators didn't intend. And as it happens, there's a lot of opportunity to do that in the Web3 or crypto space. So it's become, a hobby. We're going to talk about that today. So who in here owns some crypto? Maybe some Bitcoin, Ethereum, a couple of people. Anybody own any NFTs? One? One, really? One? Oh, this is good. This is good because my entire talk's made up and you're not going to know it. All right. Excellent. Very good. All right. So let's just baseline then some terminology. So I'm going to talk about Web3. And basically, when I talk about Web3, what I'm talking about is anything that's like a blockchain architecture or like a business use case that is reliant on blockchain. Then I'm going to talk about Web2. Web2, and these terms are very, ambiguous. You go on Google, you read about them, everybody's going to dispute what they mean. So right now, I'm in charge, so that's what they mean. Web2 basically means everything else. It means the grocery store you shop at. It means traditional servers, APIs, anything that's not, some kind of modern, newfangled, let's do it on blockchain idea. All right. Did anybody heard the term alpha? Wow, nobody's got alpha. Well, hopefully I'm going to have to get you some alpha before the end of this talk here. Alpha is basically, it's a term that's really thrown around a lot in the crypto space, which means information that gives you an edge. Usually an edge to make some money. Sometimes an edge to FOMO into something that's going to lose money. You got to be careful what's really alpha and what's not. Does everybody know what a crypto wallet is? Yeah. Yes. All right. Good. Really, functionally, crypto wallet could mean the way people use it could mean, software you use to manage transactions on crypto, maintain your balances, send it to other people. But really, when I talk about crypto wallet, I'm talking about a private key that represents your wallet that your crypto is associated with. And it's come a long way since the guy lost his Bitcoin, his wallet.dat file in a dump somewhere and can't get it back. These days, we don't really represent our crypto wallets and files and such anymore. We represent them usually with secret phrases, mnemonics. It's like a 12-word phrase, which makes it really handy because you can now port your wallet pretty much anywhere as long as you have that secret phrase. But it's also kind of a security concern because we happen to have that in the background while you're streaming on Twitch, then there goes your crypto. All right, so. All right, Ethereum, Bitcoin, these are basically what I'm going to base most of my discussion on. There are a lot of different blockchains out there that have a lot of different rules. It's way too much to talk about. But really, Ethereum and Bitcoin are the 2 biggest and most important cryptos, with Bitcoin being, we'll call it an asset, right? It doesn't do a whole lot of advanced functions, whereas Ethereum has the ability to do things like smart contracts. People can really build applications on blockchain. And that opens up a lot of interesting opportunities for people of a mindset like us. All right, gas. Gas is also important because the blockchain is really a giant distributed computing environment where if you want to do something, whether it's recording the data to move crypto from one place to another or having a complex smart contract, the person who makes the call to do something has to pay that whole validator network. And I'm going to use validator as a very general term. It's completely technically inaccurate the way I'm going to use it, but it's accurate enough for us. I'm going to use validator to represent any of the different systems that receive transactions from people like you and I, determine if they are correct, create blocks on the blockchain, and basically assert that everything is correct. But in order to pay these people, when you submit a transaction, you have to pay what's called gas, which is a certain amount of Bitcoin or Ethereum or whatever other native coin is for the blockchain you're using. And then finally, smart contracts. This is most of the newer blockchains have the ability for you to submit arbitrary code onto the blockchain called smart contracts, which you can use to effectively run logic when somebody makes a transaction. You can call functions in your smart contracts. So you can start doing things like building autonomous decentralized exchanges, for example, where you can exchange one crypto for another. There's no human involved, no permission. It's all just logic on chain. And as long as the rules fit, it's all done. It's magic. It's internet magic. All right. Now, before we go too much further, I do want to call out 3 important things before I get you all excited about going home and getting rich in crypto. Everything in the crypto space is a scam, like literally everything. For every honest person in crypto, there's dozens of scammers out there just waiting to get you. If you go home and you download a wallet and you have an issue and you go post somewhere, hey, there's something wrong here, I guarantee you within 10 seconds, you're going to get half a dozen at least scammers pretending to be support for that product just so they can trick you into stealing your crypto. So it's a really dangerous space. You can get rich in crypto, like some people have. You've seen the guys like with the Bitcoin wrapped Lamborghini, but for every person who does that, there's thousands of people who can't pay their mortgage because they FOMO'd into some project and now they don't have their mortgage anymore. And really for us, this last one's important, which there's this perception that is very incorrect that the blockchain is lawless, that you can do things like exploit a smart contract and steal a couple $1 million of crypto and get away with it because it's the blockchain. There's no enforcement, nothing's going on there. But it's important to recognize that it is true that enforcement is ambiguous at this point. Regulation is ambiguous. It's multi-jurisdictional. There's a lot of international actors, so it may be hard to crack down and enforce law in crypto currently. But everything that was illegal in Web2 is just as illegal in Web3. Just because you do it on blockchain doesn't mean your illegal, investment scheme is somehow legal. It doesn't mean stealing is somehow legal. And that's important because in Web3, with most chains, there's also a feature that doesn't exist in Web2. If you go and steal somebody's bicycle on the sidewalk, if you weren't caught on camera and positively identified, you might get away with it, right? It happens all the time. You go steal somebody's bicycle on Web3, it is immutably and permanently recorded on the blockchain. So maybe nobody cares right now, or nobody has the capability to investigate it right now. But that doesn't mean that in a week, a month, whenever, particularly the higher stakes the crime you do, that somebody's not going to come down on you. And right now, the IRS is working on machine learning and artificial intelligence applications of blockchain just to predictively figure out that you're cheating them out of tax revenue, right? Now, apply this to any number of private investigation firms, law enforcement agencies, et cetera. If you were doing nefarious things on blockchain and you ever want to turn that criminal proceed, we'll say, into something that you can actually use, a sandwich, a Coke, you've got to convert it out of that crypto at some point, which means you've got to de-anonymize or at least leave breadcrumbs of between that crime and you in order to turn that into value. And you're going to set yourself up to get caught. So that's a very long-winded way of saying, don't ape into criminal activity on blockchain. Bad idea. All right. So that said, what if you had the ability to see the future, right? What could you do? How could you make money? What would the opportunities be for you if right now you could know what was going to happen, say 12 seconds from now or 10 minutes from now, right? Well, it's interesting because that's really how it is on the blockchain. So if we take our friend Maeve here on the left, right, and she wants to send some crypto to her friend Alex on the right, they'll exchange, or Alex will give Maeve her his wallet address, so that she knows where to send the crypto to. She'll use her wallet software to, craft a transaction, send it off onto the crypto network to validators. The validators, assuming she's paid enough gas, are going to validate that transaction. They're going to bundle it up into a block, record it on the blockchain, and magically, no magic internet money, Alex has gotten some crypto, just like that. What's important is now everybody in the world for all time can see that Maeve just sent Alex that crypto. Very interesting. What's also interesting is there's a period there when Maeve submits that transaction before the validators actually pick it up, where it goes into this big cache of transactions called the mempool. And basically what happens is blocks are created at regular intervals. To talk about like Binance Smart Chain, it's targeted every 3 seconds. Ethereum is like every 12 seconds. Bitcoin's targeted at every 10 minutes. Where when a validator goes to create a block, it'll look into the mempool and it will pull out the transactions from the mempool that are paying the highest gas, so it can make the most profitable block that it can, right? And so if your transaction hasn't been picked yet for a block, it's just sitting there in mempool. And what's really fascinating is anybody can look at the mempool right now. I mean, you're looking at a copy of it from whenever the heck I took the screenshot. These are all transactions that were submitted but not yet processed on the blockchain. Right here, you're now seeing the past that was once the future, 12 seconds in advance, right? So in reality, on the blockchain, you really can see the future. If you're looking for it, you can know what's going to happen in 3 seconds or in 12 seconds or in 10 minutes, right? So what would you do with all that information, right? Well, there's a huge flourishing industry of bots in crypto. They're all doing this general activity of front running. And do we know what front running is? All right. So front running, we would often think of as like in the stock world, think about it like insider trading, right? Where all you know some secret information. Very illegal, right? Don't do that kind of stuff. Well, in the crypto world, when we talk about front running, what we're usually talking about is we're talking about looking into the mempool for certain patterns of activity that we have determined are profitable for us. And then using that information to take some kind of an action to profit off that when it happens, when it actually executes, 12 seconds in the future. Or you could even potentially take action to prevent that from happening. Let's say that I really wanted a new NFT, for example. I don't really want to buy it yet, but I also don't want to lose it. Well, I could be watching for a transaction in mempool of somebody else buying it, right? And then if I see they're about to, I could snatch in, pay some higher gas and get my transaction processed first and snatch it out from under them, right? Just a simple kind of a use. Thinking about it other ways, well, we know that Elon Musk can move crypto markets or really any other market just with like a single tweet, right? If he tweets Dogecoin, what's going to happen? It's going to double in value, right? Well, what if you could identify what crypto wallets belong to Elon Musk, right? And then you could monitor the mempool for activity on those wallets. So you can know what Elon Musk is about to do before he actually does it, right? You can identify Elon Musk's next crypto degen play, and through the power of computers and bots, potentially mirror his play. So when he makes that tweet, you get just as rich as he does. Sound good? Could happen. In fact, there's a lot of people who do that right now with all sorts of crypto notables like Vitalik Buterin. You also hear about like front-running bots. You probably heard some in the news. They steal a couple $1 million on crypto swaps. Same type of thing. They can find out that you're about to exchange some crypto and get in front of that. And actually through a series of transactions, they can buy the crypto at the best price available right now, make you pay a little bit more, and then sell it as soon as you do to squeeze out that little bit of margin, right? This happens all the time. So moving on from that. So one of the interesting things about the Web3 zeitgeist is the idea that Web3 should be decentralized and unstoppable. So like the US government shouldn't have a voice in it or control. Technically, they should be locked out from doing that. any other government, any other whoever. If you have an idea, you should be able to build something on blockchain, deploy it, and let it go forever, right? And that's actually true. That is how it works, unless the maintainers of the blockchain decide to change the code and break your thing. But that's basically how it works. But what's happened over the years is that the participants have found that the economics of gas really undermine that decentralization. So if we look back to like early 2020 and before, gas was really cheap. It didn't cost you a lot of crypto to process the transaction. And Ethereum was really cheap. It was under $200. It's like, I don't know, what, somewhere between 15 and 1700 right now. I don't know what it is. It got to a peak of like, I don't know. Anybody know what the peak was? Somewhere between 4 and 6. But basically, you could build these decentralized apps that were very complicated because it was cheap to process transactions against those contracts. But all of a sudden, the bull market came in 2020. Ethereum 20x, the amount of gas it took to process the transaction 20x, and now all of a sudden something that cost you pennies or maybe $1 to process earlier was costing you tens of dollars or hundreds of dollars. It might cost you $150 to send $1.50 of crypto to your friend, right? It doesn't make any sense. It basically undermined the whole idea. And that really brought us to a place where we are now. And don't get me wrong, there's still a lot of people who are all about the decentralized, message. But economically, we're now more moving towards the gas optimized reality. And what this means is that blockchain developers are more and more peeling logic back out of smart contracts and moving it back into client-side code in your browsers, moving it into traditional backend APIs, because they can remove a lot of that heavy lifting that drives the high gas usage on the transaction and just do it off chain and pass information in as they process the transaction. What this really means for us, being security-minded folks, is we now get the benefits, if you call them benefits, but we now get the benefits of all the security issues that come along with traditional backend APIs, client-side code, and smart contracts, all rolled into one with many modern Web3 applications. Advance.
Smells like.
Whoops. Oh well, we were in that one. Anyways, there's also the moral of the story on that is there's a lot of interesting alpha out there that's waiting to be discovered. So I'm just going to share 2 actual use cases of things that I've come across here. So the first one is a mid-size Bitcoin mining company, and do we all know what Bitcoin mining is? That's basically how the Bitcoin network works. Miners run ungodly amounts of compute power, specialized compute power to find blocks and solve crypto hashes. But Go Mining is one of those companies. They're a very established Bitcoin miner who has now moved into the Web3 space. What they've done is they've created an NFT project that tokenizes their hash rate, so that instead of investing a ton of money to have physical Bitcoin miners, you can now buy a small amount of Bitcoin miner power. So you can get into the Bitcoin mining game with, an initial investment that's probably less than your average night out, right? And in exchange, you get Bitcoin rewards that are basically equivalent to real physical mining. So they launched these NFTs, and then like most NFT projects, they've been completely unable to resist the urge to gamify their products. This is a big thing in the space. And so they also launched some gamification. You get to do things like manage your virtual Bitcoin farm, right? You can go in there once a day, you can click a service button to maintain your farm, and in exchange, you get a discount off your hosting costs, right? Up to 3%.
10 minutes.
10 minutes? No way. That's terrible. We're gonna make this a 40-minute talk? So in any case, as you can imagine what I just said, that's a lot of logic. It's a lot of complexity. It'd be a lot to manage directly on blockchain. So they have a very complex ecosystem, and they're a project who, in order to manage that, has really spanned the whole space of client-side code, back-end APIs, and multiple smart contracts to wrap it all together. All right. So I like Bitcoin mining. As I mentioned, I like exploring interesting APIs and things. So I took a look at them. And I don't know if anybody else is like this, but I got a little confession, which is I use almost nothing other than Chrome developer tools, and curl. It's just my biggest complaint in life is that I can't get developer tools on my mobile phone. So if anybody knows an answer to that, please catch me up later. But in any case, my first step is to effectively walk through all of their APIs. Now, all the things that are being called automatically, all the things that get called when you interact with any of their various doodads in the application, right? And see what's actually going on there. And one of the things I found was they return a wild amount of information beyond what's actually being used in the application. And this was my first grade alpha, because what it actually provided for me was competitive advantage in their game, because I now had access to information that other users of the platform did not have. So I was able to build systems that would allow me to attain a higher daily Bitcoin reward than other users were able to do. But we're not going to go into that because, that's that. I'm not giving away my secrets. But one of the APIs I noted in the exploration was a push API. And this API would be invoked every time you click that service button I talked about. And the developers intended this button to be clicked once every 24 hours. That was how it worked. You had to come back once every 24 hours to click the button, keep you engaged with the game, to maintain your discount. Every time you clicked it, you get a little bit of discount. It would add up over days. But if you forgot to click it, there goes all your discount. And that's terrible. So, I played with it. I found that it was very well enforced in the client-side code. You absolutely could not, through the client-side code, interact with that button more than once every 24 hours. But they had no actual protection on the API itself. So you could invoke the API whenever you wanted, and sure enough, it would reset your service counter. Excellent. I was like, this is awesome. I'm never gonna have to worry about losing my discount again. I'm just gonna fire up a Lambda function and call this this API once a day or something automatically for me every 12 hours, right? But then as I was exploring other APIs, I noticed something I hadn't noticed when I was interacting with this API, because it doesn't return much useful data, which is that when you're interacting with the API directly, it would actually increment the days well beyond the limit that they had set. So I did what any rational person would do, and I put together a dirty loop and ran it and serviced my farm 1,621 times, and acquired an 816% discount on my hosting fee. Yes. To my amazement, the developers had not only had they not enforced the limitation on how often you could click the button, they also not bothered to enforce in the logic, back-end logic, once the API is invoked, to limit the actual impact of invoking the API. So at this point, the least impactful scenario is I get free hosting. That's nice. But the most impactful, it really would depend, and I didn't have visibility into this, but how automated is their daily reward payout function? What kind of checks and balances do they have there? Because if this just processes right now, they're going to pay me 716% of what I was supposed to pay them, which means if I take this to the extreme, and keep this going, is this an exploit that allows me to completely drain their reward wallet at the next reward cycle, right? I didn't find out. That was a couple hours away, and I think that clearly falls into category 3 that I talked about earlier. So I responsibly disclosed this. They fixed it before the next reward cycle, offered me completely no reward. So any case, but yeah, so there's a good example, right? If you apply a little security mindset to some of these projects, there are opportunities, maybe if I was a little more black hat. But moving on to a second example, and how am I on time?
5 minutes.
Oh, that's perfect. Okay, moving on to a second example here, to an art project. I minted an NFT project called Rhoda earlier this year. It's Rise of the Apes. It was the second collection of this Apes Together Strong organization. And basically, I was just trying to squeeze out some, I guess, to kind of explain when a non-terrible NFT project, that's important because most NFT projects like mint straight at zero, and that's where they stay forever. And when a non-terrible NFT project mints, there's often like a little bump and drop that happens in pricing. So usually you mint, and then you get out, you eke out a little bit of profit. That was my goal with this. I minted some. I had no idea really about this community or anything about it, but as I got in, it was actually pretty interesting. I found that the founder was very passionate and had a rather unique quality in the crypto space, which was that he was not an entirely, a complete asshat. So I stuck around to see what their utilities would look like as they went forward. So fast forward, a couple weeks, couple months into the future, and they had released two utilities that I thought were really interesting. The first was effectively a utility intended to help them maintain the floor price of their collection. Because what happens is if you're just holding a bunch of NFTs, oftentimes what you'll do is you just list them on NFT marketplaces because, hey, why not? Maybe somebody will bite and you'll make some money. But what happens is that causes everybody to keep undercutting each other all the time. So it causes the floor price to go down. So they built this utility that incentivizes you to delist your NFTs. And it does this by automatically giving you tickets for this 8 ticket system for any NFT that is unlisted. You get more tickets, the rarer it is. You get more tickets, and you get like a multiplier if you have no NFTs listed at all. And every week they do a drawing based on those tickets, and they give away, something. It's usually NFTs in their ecosystem or partner NFTs, something like that. But they actually have real monetary value, a couple hundred, a couple $1,000s. So it's a pretty interesting utility. The second utility was a war utility, where it's part of the lore of this whole project. Like these are some apes that went through like a multi-dimensional thing and got, anyways, you can send the NFTs to war, and it's a deflationary mechanism where if you send it to war, there's a random chance that it's not coming back, that it will get burnt. And so as that happens, and as it happens, the rarer the ape is, the higher the chance it gets burnt. So what you do is you stake your NFT on this contract. 48 hours later, you can come back, you can unstake it. And based on that random chance, you'll either get it back and it will be upgraded in rarity, which means theoretically it's worth more money, or it will be burnt and, well, you might regret it depending on how rare it went in. But one of the other interesting things is that you can also continue to receive ape tickets for NFTs while they are submitted to the staking contract. All right, so I was really curious about this war function because one of the things that smart contracts don't really do well is random. So hearing random kind of piqued my interest. And so I found the contract, I dug through the client-side code, found the contract address that was being referenced, went to Etherscan, which is a website that allows you to see basically all the data about the Ethereum network. And it's really easy to see the actual code of smart contracts because they're on chain, like they're out there. There's no proprietary thing going on here with smart contracts. So you just go out there, I found the functions that were available for it. Saw two interesting functions, the go to war function where you submit it, the leave war where you're unstaking it. And what I noticed was that with the leave war function, there's actually a value you're passing in when you're calling that function, which is the random data, the random numbers. So that's interesting. Of course, how can we control what the random numbers are and therefore control the outcome of the war? I don't know. So I went and I looked at the code, and what I found was no, I can't. They had done a smart thing here. What they've got is wherever that data was coming from, it's being signed by a wallet that they control, and this contract is validating that signature is valid, which means if I send in any data I want, I can't. It's not going to be signed right. It's not going to be saved. Well, that's too bad. So I can't control the outcome. That's unfortunate. But I kept looking, I saw that this function called another function, underscore leave war, which then called another function died at war, which is the function that actually determines if an ape lives or if an ape dies. All right. And basically all this is doing here with all this gobbledygook is it's taking in the random number and the ID of that NFT. It's hashing it, converting it into an integer, modding that integer by 100. And if whatever that number resultant is less than the burn chance for that NFT, it dies. So what I know is I can't control if it lives or dies, but I can definitely determine if it lives or dies if I know what's going in there. So next thing I did was jump over into the client-side code because, if you're going to call a smart contract, that's where it's going to live. It's going to be in the client-side code because you got to assemble the transaction somewhere. So I dug through, I found the section of code that's actually making that call, including the API where the random number data is coming from that gets passed in, which is nice. And, using the aforementioned curl because I don't know anything about modern hacking tools. I determined I was in fact able to retrieve the random numbers for any ape that had been sent to war. Now, unfortunately, if an ape had not been sent to war, there was no data in there, which is a real shame because it would have been some real nice alpha to be able to determine before I sent the ape if it was going to live or die, right? But that was not possible, unfortunately. So next best thing, like these token numbers, those are all the ID numbers, apes that were at war. Random numbers are all random numbers that passed them. So so I can't control the outcome. I can't know in advance what whether they're going to live or die. But this is still valuable because at the very minimum, if I do send an ape to war, I will know if it's going to die if I call the leave war button, the leave war function. So if I know it's going to die, I can just leave it sit there and derive some value from the ape tickets. It's better than nothing. It's like a consolation prize for burning a couple $100, I guess. But the alpha is actually interesting if we go further because none of these apes are mine, but I know if they're going to live or die. And the value of NFTs are generally based on either the utility or the rarity. In this case, it's rarity, which means if I know which of these apes are going to live or die, I know 48 hours in advance how the rarity of this collection is going to change, right? So I can now determine if some ultra rare ape is about to die and the number of, galaxy skin apes is going to go from 6 to 3, right? For example, which gives the opportunity to front run the market on rarity. Right? So that's an idea. And now that you've all heard this, if you have any other ideas about how to front run based on this knowledge, absolutely let me know. But I'm at time, right?
Is the random number tied to the token?
It is.
Okay, so you can't just use a different random number.
That's correct. Yeah. But it's not, even though the wallet is in there, if you were paying attention, the wallet has no relation whatsoever. Because, yeah. All right, so that's it. I didn't flip through all my things on here, but I explained it, so that's fine. And that's it. Okay. Okay, so one more thing. At the beginning of this talk, I mentioned secret phrases, right? Mnemonics. If you paid attention or didn't, there were 12 words in this slide. Oh, yeah. And this QR code references a wallet address. That QR code alone won't help you, but it will let you see what was in there. So if you happen to have caught any of that, there's some crypto waiting for you. But if you didn't, wait for YouTube. Yeah. All right.
All right, thank you. A little over, but thank you for sharing all your secrets with us.
Secret sauce.
3.0, thank you. Awesome job. Great job.